your people, places, and things, and being able to like throw in the color of a certain culture that they're talking, like, of the person they're talking to, right? Like you may not have a script of what this person is going to say, but based on the person's culture and their background, get into that headspace of that NPC and being like, what do they want? And the last thing I would add to that is be consistent when you improv. It's totally fine to be improvisational and not have a lot of prep, but anything that you declare as a fact, that is canon going forward. So just use it. And if it means you have to write that down, write it down.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Note taking is
using that. Yeah.
Note taking is super important when you improv.
Yeah.
Get everything in line that you've said.
And using your players' feedback and your own improvisational stuff, it's great.
If I could just come back to you on that about preparing. I used to actually, when I was a young DM, I used to actually write down all the possible dialogue responses to all the questions the PCs might actually ask the NPC. Like I was that like paranoid about being unprepared.
Wow.
I would sit and think, I'm like, all right, well, if they're going to talk to this king, they might ask about the caverns, they might ask about this guy they saw, and I would write pages and pages of it. I mean, it was boring as shit for them because I had to like, I was like literally reading from the page every time they asked me something. But it got me in the, like you were saying, about sort of understanding who they were and why they were there and what their motivations were. And if you spend some time, like what really works for me is if I've written a bunch of random encounters, because I don't really write plot, but if I've written these scenes down, I like sit down and I'll like read them over and I'll just close my eyes and I'll just think about what it looks like. What could the players possibly do? Like, okay, I've got this setting in my mind. Are they going to be able? They're going to want to climb the trees. How am I going to deal with that? What happens if they want to set an ambush? What happens if they want to light the forest on fire? If you try to think of all the what ifs, and then when you're not going to get flat-footed at the table,
Definitely.
Cadonia?
Yeah, so as they've all said, like very much kind of people is what I tend to prep for the most, and weather tables. I love weather tables because
me too.
Weather's a thing that if you don't prepare for it, it just doesn't exist, right? Days always like it's a little bit sunny or maybe a little overcast. It's like you're never gonna like, or the plot demands there's a thunderstorm now, which is kind of dull. Whereas if you kind of do weather tables up, then suddenly as they're going along, they just get hit by a blizzard, and you don't have to feel bad about it.
Yeah,
because you can just like say, well, there was a blizzard, like. And you can like give them warning signs and stuff. So I find that the other thing that I've recently done, which I've found very helpful, is as well as like just a set of random names I can assign to people, is also a random table for just a personality quirk. So either like they're helpful, like they're a helpful person, they're a bully, they're lazy, or something like that. So they meet a random person. Like I'm quite bad at dealing with NPCs in general, so I need to give this NPC something to remember by. So I find if I just get a random table, I can just roll on to be like, okay, so this guy is always horny. Okay, let's go. Like that's something I can then give that character some flavor. And I find that's a really useful thing, just for when you're giving some random NPCs you just thought about your ass. They suddenly have something important about them.
I mean,
that's an amazing idea right there.
And it's so good, like using a tag system with just really simple terms like that, and especially like over the top terms like really horny. That's going to make you remember it, and if you can play that out well enough, that's pretty much what your kids, your players are going to remember about it as well. So brilliant.
Definitely.
Like I said, I make stuff up all the time when I'm playing. Like I do most things improv. For West Marches, I have a pretty good idea about. My Northlands, I have a pretty good idea about what the lay of the land is. But mostly it's made up. So an example of that is a dungeon that I was running for some guys. I didn't really know what was going on with the place because I like randomly generating dungeons. So and then tying that together through the narrative as we're playing, like as part of the improv. And it ended up really good, like just tying all these separate elements. Like one of the rooms I went into, it said there was cages hanging from the roof. And so I made the cages, that had bodies in there. The floor was littered with bones. That's going to impact their sneaking ability. And it was good. Like they really went for it, and it really seemed believable because if you're following the threads of your improv, things are naturally going to occur. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I've said this,
No,
so
definitely.
obviously this is going to be happening further down the track.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, Andy, is like keeping things consistent and using things that you improvised in a previous session or hell, even 5 minutes ago, as like the that's now officially in effect, and it's going to have additional effects.
Excellent.
Yeah, but that I think personally, I find especially with West Market styles campaigns and stuff, is prep you need to do should not be for sessions; it should be for your world. So I like doing things again like randomized tables for things you're going to find in the wild and stuff.
Yeah.
Give yourself something to work off of when you actually have to improvise. So like my favorite example that I recently did was a random table, and like they were already camping, and it's like, oh, a random event's going to happen. What's the random event? And it was they find a feature. The feature was standing stones.
Yeah.
And so I just randomly had to improvise why they camped for a night at this tower, and suddenly there were standing stones there that they hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
So I ended up making up this kind of basically being a giant teleporter thing that druids came out of.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience, and the players had a lot of time with it, and I was really happy with it. But you just need to give yourself some prompts to go off to then start your improvisation.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I found the more I prep, the better I can improvise.
Oh, that's absolutely
specifically
true as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like what I found is specifically, I found if I'm playing with new players, like I mostly do, having to disconnect yourself from the world and the narrative that you're trying to turn around in your head, because your head's basically a computer, and you only it's not multi-threaded in the way that you want it to be, and all of a sudden you have to think of like someone asks, how do I make an attack roll? All of a sudden you have to disconnect that kind of stuff. So if you can have somebody, like going back to tying into the rules lawyer kind of thing, if you have somebody who can actually help your players, especially if there's like more than 4 or 5 of you, to like kind of help people do this stuff, so you can focus on that improvisation and you can focus on that narrative and that consistency that and that prep that you really want to do. Yeah, definitely do that.
That also comes back to like even why I made this show, and probably why Famous made the sub for D&D Behind the Screen, is because DMing's a bloody hard thing to do. Really, you need to have your head in the game, and because you're providing entertainment to all these people. You're trying to tell stories. You're doing so much stuff.
You should also recognize as a GM, you should see your flaws. Your players will probably tell you what your flaws are when you actually GM. Like for instance, for me, since I have so many things going on with new players and those questions and stuff, what happens is I end up mispronouncing people's names. Like I will call an NPC like 4 different names or like 4 different variations of the same name. Just because I'm not thinking and because so many things are going on.
I will.
I'll
constantly forget names, and that's why I really and my players will and I'll have to ask them, what was his name again? And they'll tell me. But for my Northlands, I have a spreadsheet that I'm keeping, and it's helped me a lot, especially with those record keepings of just the different things that I've said. I'm tracking who is who and where they are on my map and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah,
for sure.
The more prep you have, the easier it is to improv. But and it depends on the game as well. Like Dungeon World thrives on improv. Apocalypse World thrives on improv. You can do a lot with those.
Being an old school DM, I have lots and lots and lots of random tables. That's basically what happens to me.
Yeah.
My shield is covered with nothing but random tables.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that about Stars Without Number. Like, that guy's tables are amazing. Looking at tables and coming up with like a narrative that fits all the various things you rolled is so much fun for me as a GM. So sometimes that's what my prep would be. Like my prep would be coming up with a general conflict. Specifically, for when I was doing my West Marches thing, what I would do is I would basically divide areas into regions, and like there would be like a general conflict that's going on. It may spill into other regions or whatever. Like that's just me. That's just arbitrary GM randomness that I would introduce. But anyways, like for mine was like, oh, I have a ranger fort out in the middle of the woods here, and they're currently under siege by an orc warband. And then you roll in these tables, and you're like, griffins keep coming up as wild, like random encounters. What if like how do griffins play into this greater conflict narrative that you have in your mind for this region? And then you start thinking that way, and you're like, oh, what if the orcs are like who are attacking this ranger camp? What if they're capturing griffins and like trying to like capture them and use them for this siege? And all of a sudden you're like, okay, great. So random encounters of like traps. Like, oh, what if the giant like with a dead horse and like in these palisades is supposed to trap a griffin, and like there's your trap for you. Like using like that narrative to frame random encounter tables, it's great.
Yeah.
I think you just nailed the art of DMing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You got to pull in all these threads. Get these threads from everywhere.
You're painting organically in real time.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. Real time. Your goal is to channel Bob Ross, like real time painting.
That's right.
That mistake there will make that a bird.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
There are no mistakes, only happy accidents.
Okay, so the next thing. Sorry, go for it, Katonia.
No. I don't have anything else to say.
All right. I was going to say the next thing we have on our list of things to talk about is a Q&A from the stream, but we have no people in the stream to ask questions. Unless we do. Actually, no, we've got some people now. So if you're in the stream, want to ask a question, ask away, and we'll try and answer what questions you have. Now is the wait time.
What do bad things happen to good people?
Why do bad things happen to good people? Because of DMs. That's why.
Because otherwise,
the DM of reality is completely unfair.
Yeah.
There's no rules limiting the DM of reality.
There isn't.
Like he really just give good spotlighting either. Like some people just seem to get all the limelight. And
yeah, no, definitely.
Oh yeah. That's actually talking about spotlighting. That's something that one of the previous questions. How can I get players to gain more confidence? Is your players spotlighting other players, especially the stronger ones, as well as GMs offering like things from softballs to fastballs in terms of things to roleplay.
We have a question.
Let's actually bring that up because that's something I'm struggling with personally. Is trying to spotlight people, and like, as a new GM, that's because I'm used to I kind of make a situation. I go to my players now and deal with the situation. But so how do you guys actually go about kind of spotlighting your players?
Subplot, which is all based off the background. That's how I do it.
I use their backgrounds a lot to help spotlight because I like knowing, I guess, what they are looking for from their character. So, for example, my wife has a character who is a dwarf who is from like a circle of guardians of nature. And she's been on this adventure where she went up north, so I gave her the opportunity, basically because she wanted to like explore other regions of nature and stuff, to explore underwater with some merfolk. And it was really spotlighted on her, and it gave her a really good opportunity to explore what her character is about. There's also some relationship stuff that I've built in with her character. Other people that I play with, it's really based on their background. Their background will tell you what they want to highlight. So you just build in opportunities.
Almost give them an entire session that's kind of focused around their kind of backgrounds and stuff.
I never give an entire session.
Never, just kind of bring it up mid-session, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I like building it in so that it's more organic. I'm trying to think of other examples where I've done that.
I've got a few.
Yeah, go for it, Hibba. Yeah, go.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about an entire session with the character, and you can do that at 0 level to build the backstory and play that out. But as far as spotlighting is concerned within the actual story, you just keep a record of all the people they've met, and you keep bringing them back into their story.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. the events that they've had. So say at first level they have a run-in with this guard, and the guard's always hassling them every time they pass through the gate, and there's real animosity builds up. You know?
Yeah.
They just really don't like each other. And you play it out over. Maybe the town is the hub, and every time they see them, the characters keep getting stronger, but so does the guard.
Yeah.
That's
So,
my favorite thing to do. That's
clever.
Not guards, but that's amazing famous. Yeah, man, that's the best thing to do.
Even mentioning
so
stuff.
you can
just an offhand mention of something from their background works as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything you can use to resonate with what they've already done. Like if you give them a touchstone of something that they recognize, they're gonna go and be just super into the game even more because they realize you give a shit because you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Actually, about reading what I wrote. Oh, sorry. Have you got something to say about this one, Cathonia? Like.
No. I'm happy to take all this stuff. This is really useful.
Speaking of reading what I wrote, like you just said, what sort of backgrounds do you expect characters to have? Because personally,
they're always ridiculous.
I've got so much stuff that I have to be doing, and I dread having people hand me like a 3-page, background for their character. I dread it.
And describing an epic tale that they've undertaken, but they are still level 1 characters.
Yeah.
But they've managed to defeat a dragon at some point in the past.
Sorry, Super Assassin. No, you're not. You're just this dude.
Not yet, anyway. You might be someday, but you're not right now.
Yeah.
Or even worse, you'll get somebody who writes like a 3-page backstory, but it's like so well contained that there's nothing you can work from because they are this angsty loner.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Exactly. I think.
And you're like, come on, dude.
I like seeing
not
backgrounds.
Everyone's an orphan. Not all adventurers are orphans.
Yeah, I want to see
what you got to stress.
I want to see backgrounds that are like if you think about yourself, you don't know everything about everything that's happened to you, and the same should be from the point of view of your character. Your character can't know everything that's happened to them, You don't know why there was a fire down the road and it just happened to waft smoke into your house and, kill your parents. Like,
this damn parent killing wasps.
Yeah.
Every time, man. Every time.
I don't know.
So I just linked something to the Skype chat, and I think Andy might want to link it later on for the post discussion here.
Yeah.
This is something that I found invaluable. It's called the 10-minute background. Basically, it's like a quick little like step-by-step process that basically turns a backstory into bullet points for a GM to use.
That's cool.
So it's something that this combined with 5th edition's backgrounds has been something that's like been really invaluable for me as a GM to like really bring people to light. For my West Marches game, not so much. Like backgrounds are basically irrelevant. So like backstories, I actually don't really require them that much in a West Marches setting. But in an actual game setting, like for me, I typically run like small little episodic games instead of a campaign.
Yeah.
Like 4 to 6 session story arcs and be done, just because of scheduling. But like something quick and succinct that I can use is all I want. And this is exactly, I think, I've had great feedback from the 10-minute background.
Really good. I'm definitely linking this.
It actually talks a lot of the stuff that Andy you were mentioning. There's plenty of parts where like you as a player bring in secrets, but there's also a part where the GM introduces a secret based on what you talk about.
Yeah.
Like that kind of ties and twists things together.
I love doing that.
Boom.
I love being all like, hey, here's this thing. So one of my characters,
like here.
So one of my characters is like their cleric actually grew up in the city of the dead, which is like on the plane of existence where the dead go before they're like sorted into their respective afterlives. But there's like a metropolis sort of growing there. So his character grew up there, and he said he doesn't know why he got there, and that was perfect. I want to know what you don't know about your character mostly. The other stuff I should see in game as you're playing. I should see what your character is about in that way. But I want to know how I can inject stuff into your character and surprise you. What famous? You were going to say something before as well. What were we going to say?
I was going to say that I don't really like if a player hands me a backstory, I say, "Oh, that's I appreciate the effort, but I'd prefer us if we created the backstory together."
Yeah, yeah.
I like to play it. I like to play it out. I think your backstory should be something you experience. It should be part of the game, and when you start adventuring at level 1, you're nobody. You're broke. And you got your basic wooden sword. You step out of the village and you got to go and you got to build yourself up. I think this whole notion of you showing up to the game with some dramatic backstory is really doing a disservice to the story that you can actually experience. Why read about it when you can live it? That's sort of how I approach players who do that, and I've never really gotten that much flack from it. Everyone seems to be like, "Oh, all right, well let's try it. Let's see how this works." And if you can, give them a little bit of what they want, then yeah, it works a bit better, I think.
I have gotten flack for it though. I'm one of those.
Yeah?
I guess I'm in the minority here, where I've gotten flack from trying to set up like a session 0, like pre-campaign kind of thing, as like an introductory thing. Specifically for the game, like I'm doing a modified adventure path story, where basically all the characters were orphans, and I don't think the game really resonated very well for players, because here you are, you make a first level character and you are ready to go, even though you just have a sword and all that kind of stuff, and you have this shared backstory of being an orphan who grew up under this terrible person's, you basically were a child worker for this guy. But like when you kind of go back in time as this level 0 character, you're like, well, I just want to be a level 1 character because I have all these functionalities and all these kind of things that I want to start the game with. And I just don't really see where this is going. And maybe it was also part of my own failure as a GM to do this well. So maybe other people have a better example of actually doing this well. But for me, it was a dismal failure. And I should have just started it saying like, hey, this was assumed, this is what happened, and then just start the story from there.
I think how you could have fixed that is that someone says they're an orphan, sure, but like they have no other family, no cousins, no uncles, no aunts, no grandparents, no friends, no enemies, nobody grows up like that. And if someone says, "Oh, I'm an orphan," I'm like, all right, well, what about your grandparents? Are they still around? What about your cousins? What about your aunts? What about your uncles? What about your neighbors? What about the creepy old guy down the street? Like, you can't exist in a vacuum. And if someone gives you a backstory like that, then it's your responsibility to flesh it out. Help them flesh it out. Don't say, "Sure, okay, you're an orphan." You're the DM. I mean, you have to control the game. Yeah, you have to ask questions. Definitely. And you have to set the tone at the beginning and say, "Well, I'm sorry, but that's just not good enough."
And if they don't have the answers to those questions, then that's something that you can use. Like, when you don't have any grandparents, it's like, "Oh,
that's what I did, Andy. Thank you.
I know that you do, and they're horrible.
Yeah,
and they're gonna come and get you and kill you."
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I ended up doing,
because you have the whole inheritance or something.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
This Claire character,
that's something I used to great effect.
This Claire character that I mentioned that grew up on the plane of the dead, his like the big secret with his thing is he's actually a descendant of the family of this betrayer that betrayed this god emperor type guy, he's actually I think he knows that he's on a quest to find the sword of the betrayer so that he can present it to the emperor or something. Oh no, sorry, he's the direct descendant of this betrayer who killed his brother. So he's on the quest to find the brother, the sword of the betrayer's brother to present to this god emperor. But he doesn't realize exactly how it all happened, so that's going to be, revealed to him that he's actually not this. Oh, sorry. No, that's right. He's the son of the actual betrayed guy, not the betrayer who was. And there was they stole him and stuff like that, and they stole his ancestor. Either way, it's going to surprise me now as well. So we actually have another.
That's why you write things down.
Really exactly. We actually do have a question. I'm going to start my first try at GMing soon for a West Marches-like game. So giving the players much freedom in where to go, etc. How would you guys prepare for the weird decisions players could make? I guess that would be. I'm just slightly afraid players will do something I won't expect, and I can't deal with it in the moment. So, they're asking, how do you manage, I guess, players who make decisions that you don't expect, which is, I guess, about improv. What do you think?
Fuck up over and over and over again. That's what you do.
Yep.
Yeah. Fuck up in an interesting
helping,
way. That's the key.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. So for my West Marches game, I actually, before we played and even rolled characters and generated characters, I actually spent the time and wrote up a player reference document, which was basically like the agreement of like, hey, this is how, like, this is what's, I'm laying out everything for you here. Like, hey, I'm not going to be the one who schedules the games. Just don't kill each other as players, right? Like, just don't do that. You all belong to the same, like, adventuring guild. Just don't kill each other. And so if a player would come in and end up being, you know, whenever time being like, okay, I'm going to stab my friend here. It's like, I already established in this rule thing here, like, if you do that, you immediately forfeit your character, and they just become an NPC, because they're not going to be welcome back in town. Like, basically just throwing it out at the start, being like, this is what I expect. If you're going to do this kind of anti-fun stuff for their group, then this is what you should encounter. So if that's what you mean by like weird decisions, or if you mean like, you know, if someone finds a cat and like someone wants to make it a pet, another person wants to eat it or something like that,
I'm thinking it's more
you kind of
like,
just have to roll with it.
I think it's more like to go, here's the town, we're going this way, you know, but maybe Kamuli here hasn't really decided what's going on over there, I think, maybe. So I think what you need to do, Kamuli, is have a lot of preparation for what is around, at least within a couple of days' ride of the players.
Yeah.
And any weird decisions is part of being a DM. Okay?
I can tell, yeah. I could help Kamuli like with that, with the West Marches style. I can tell him exactly what I did as a GM.
Yep.
And I want to know if Andy and actually if Canonian will agree, as well as Famous. What I did was I just thought of these central conflicts, right? Like, so I had that orcs attacking the rangers in the north here. A little bit even more north than that, I had this undead battlefield tower kind of concept going on in my head. And then to the south, I had this like Fey forest, like these groups of like Fey forest kingdoms I called the Harlequins, which were like this random like kind of group of like this anarchic kind of forest of all these like Fey princes and kings and stuff like that. And that's what I had, and like those were the places that the guys could adventure into. And if I just had those kind of general conflicts in my head of what can happen, then what I would end up doing is if I rolled a random encounter table, then I would phrase that problem in the perspective of the conflict of that region. Otherwise, I will just have something in my head being like, okay, this conflict's going on. How about this one forest in the Harlequins is all maple trees, and it's the Maple Princess. And what if that princess is actually like a demon or something like that, and just going from that and just making things up in that way. Just having some sort of like kind of thing. Yeah, it is extremely hard to cover all the what ifs. So
sorry,
you have to cut it out and eventually. Sorry, I know I just was rambling on a lot, so go ahead.
Katonia, what were you going to say?
Personally, I find I think that's a really good way of doing it. But I find if you're new, that can be a very daunting thing to do, to come up with that many ideas and stuff. So what we did is we kind of had
that was 4 ideas,
kind of
right?
conflicts
Or
that were
3.
going on, and then we sort of set up kind of what we thought people of their ability could kind of deal with. And then we basically set up a bounty board, or kind of basically a standard RPG quest board thing, and just made a post up on. We had a Facebook group for all the different people in the game, and we're like, these are all the kind of things that like you have heard about variously. Choose one of these before the session that you want to spend between the group. Choose something you want to do, and then that way you can kind of prepare for like along that kind of path. I think that's a great way to kind of give people, like, not quite the illusion of choice, because they have choice, but then you can still prepare for the specifics in time.
Yeah.
If you're not quite confident on, like, that just going fuck it for everything.
Famous, what's your...
That did not work for me in my group. Maybe it's just me, but, like, that did not work for my group. I actually, like, required people to be like, okay, we're doing this the West Marches style. give me a time. You guys have to like schedule this game, and you have to tell me what part of the world you guys are agreeing to explore on this session. And everyone would agree to meet up on a time, like if that. Then it would be like, Eric, what do you want to run today? Like, where do you want us to go?
Yeah.
And they were looking for me for inspiration.
Yeah, no, I
it's like all of a sudden,
this has been a problem lately.
Yeah.
Famous, what's your experience with sandboxes?
I feel like this is a very common problem for new players and trying to do a West Marches style game. So I'm curious what other people have to say about it.
Actually, Famous, have you heard of West Marches style gaming?
I've heard of it only through the subreddit. It's some sort of hex crawl. Is that what it is?
It is. So basically what it is, it's a player-driven hex crawl. So the DM's job is just to DM sessions. The players need to go to the DM and say, we want to play at this time. We want to do this mission. That's up to the players to do. So the DM, all they'd have to do is prepare the session based on what the players want to do. But it is basically a hex crawl.
It's basically a sandbox too when you really think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to interject real quickly that I loathe job boards. There's nothing more video gamey than a fucking job board. Your players should have hooks because they heard about them out of the lips of people walking around, or somebody come up to them and
I have tried to move that system.
I hate them. But hey, when you're a young DM and you're learning, that's what you need to do.
I mean,
lots and lots of crutches.
It is an easy way to do it. Like when it comes down to
it is.
It's an easy way to do it.
Well, anyway, I wanted to go back to the weird decision making. See, my take on that question is not what do I do if my players find a cat, I want to make it a pet. More like what do I do if my players find a cat and they want to kill it, raise it from the undead, and wear it as a hat. That kind of stuff.
And what if it works?
Undead cat hats, definitely.
Yeah, and what if it works? And the players who want to, and the players want to light everything on fire and kick everything down and just catapult themselves over castle walls, stuff like that. What do? You just go with it and you screw up again and again and again and again and again until one day you just don't screw up anymore and you just basically know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I think what people don't realize and what isn't really talked about a lot is that when you start DMing, you're going to suck for years. Nobody ever says that to you. You just have to sort of get right with failure, I think. Get right with screwing up.
Here's something that actually you can benefit as a new GM. These kind of actual conversations with fellow GMs, as well as actually like reading various journals, like game journals, like GM journals, that kind of stuff, and seeing how other people handle games and challenges. Specifically, hearing all of these various West Marches games that are going live now or being played, just hearing all and seeing all these different types of problems, just being able to take from them like the valuable lessons that people encountered as a GM is just fantastic, right? Like you have to be able to use that. So like job boards, maybe not.
I think playing a lot is a good point because the more you play, the more DM styles you encounter, the more player styles you encounter, and the more games you play in, the more things you're going to get exposed to, and the more things you'll recognize when you start DMing. You're like, all right, I remember this. Okay, this is how I probably would have handled it. Yeah. Kind of thing. So, yeah, the more the merrier, I guess.
Cool. Well, Kamali, I think we're going to be wrapping it up now, guys. We're at the hour and a half mark.
That's cool.
Thanks for your question, Kamali. I hope you got a bit more of an answer out of it.
Yeah, thanks, Kamali.
We'll be around on Reddit on the D&D Behind the Screen sub. I'm there pretty much all the time. Famous is there. Eric's there.
Pretty much all the time.
Kadoni, are you on that?
I'm there lurking. I am following that, but I tend not to post too much given my limited actual knowledge.
Well, that's how you get more knowledge.
But I'll see you guys around.
Just post stuff on there. Alright, so shout outs. Famous, any shout outs?
Word to your mother? I don't know.
Famous is a bit shy. D&D Behind the Screen on Reddit is his baby. He's done a really great job with it, and I want to thank him personally for making it and making it what it is. It's such a good resource.
I did. Yeah.
And it's doing.
I didn't know that was yours, Famous. Yeah, that's a great idea, man.
It's going gangbusters. I think it's doing really well. And apparently, I've gone back into the 1950s, and I'm using terms like gangbusters.
Yeah, it's
Eric,
been open about 2 months, I guess.
yeah. Eric,
Yeah.
any shoutouts?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitch at Eric Vulgaris. I've been trying to collaborate and run a bunch of games with the Math Squad folks. And if you're interested, just holler at me on Twitter or come see me in my various streams of games and stuff like that and see if we can get you in some of these one-shots. I want to, play games with a bunch of people and hopefully find enough people who jive well enough to actually run a campaign online a la like Get Me JP. So,
Sick.
thanks, guys.
No worries. Katonia, shoutouts.
I don't actually do that much on the internet, but every Tuesday currently I am a player in my friend Finbar's campaign. You can find that if you want to follow that streamer, Mathin and Midori, I believe it is called.
Yes, I think it is.
Which is all about airships and dragons and stuff. So if you want to come there, it's a good laugh. To follow my awful production value. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Speaking of awful production value, I am Allington. I think I fucked up this stream with the audio and stuff. I'm going to cut it down and put it up on Facebook to whatever I managed to capture. Hopefully it's going to be, not Facebook, YouTube. And I'll...
You suck at
The U face.
My God, I really do.
The my face tube.
Yeah, I'll put it onto Friends Space.
LinkedIn. You should
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Definitely LinkedIn.
It's what all kids are using these.
I'll put it somewhere. It'll be a
I was
game
hoping to
try
see
and
this on
find it.
GeoCities.
It will be. I'm going to make a GeoCities. Actually, I can't probably do that anymore. Anyway, I'm Allington. This has been Masters of the Universe Episode 2. These have been some awesome DMs. Thank you for joining us. You can catch this on my YouTube channel, which has no name at the moment, but there's a link in the Twitch. And my Twitch TV thing is The Allington. Find me there. Cool. Peace out, people. And
Thanks, Al.
Good DMing.
Yep. Thanks for tuning
See you guys.
in. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
See you later.